I knew something was off the second I saw Karren Northfield standing in the middle of my driveway with her arms crossed like she owned the place. I was hauling groceries from my truck when she turned and gave me that squint, the one that always meant trouble. "Marcus Langley," she said, like my name had personally offended her, "this driveway is technically community property, you know. It's part of the shared easement." I blinked at her. "Karren, this is my driveway. It's on my deed. I've seen the plat map." "You've seen the plat map?" She waved her hand like I was a kid mouthing off. "The HOA board reviewed the documents and determined that, functionally, it's accessible to the neighborhood, and as such it's subject to community use." I laughed. I really did. "So what, you're saying anyone can just park here now?" She didn't flinch. "If necessary, yes. We're planning to use it this weekend for the block party tables, chairs, the bounce house. It's the most open space near the cul-de-sac." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "You didn't even ask me." "Consider this your notice," she said, then turned and walked off like she'd just delivered a court verdict. I watched her clipboard bounce at her side like it had more authority than the county clerk. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who picks fights for fun, but I've been living here for 12 years. I've paid every property tax, shoveled every inch of my own snow, and repaved that driveway myself 2 summers ago. If she thought I was just gonna sit back while the HOA made up rules to hijack my property, she had another thing coming. That night, I pulled out every document I had: property deed, surveyor's report, boundary maps. Everything showed the same thing. The driveway was mine to the inch. I even pulled up the city zoning ordinance just to be sure. Nothing, and I mean nothing, gave the HOA any right to touch it, but I didn't stop there. I set up my security cameras to capture every angle of the driveway. If they were going to use it, I was going to document it. Saturday rolled around. I woke up to the sound of plastic tables scraping across concrete. I looked out the window and sure enough, Karren and 3 other board members were setting up shop, grinning like they'd just won a war. They even had the bounce house guy inflate the thing right at the edge of my garage. By noon, there were kids running around, parents drinking lemonade under tents, and someone had the audacity to plug their sound system into my outdoor outlet. That was the final straw. I didn't say a word. I let them have their little party. I even offered some ice from my cooler when one of the dads asked. But Monday morning, I drafted a formal invoice. The number was familiar: HOA office. "Marcus, this is Karren. We need to talk about that invoice." I smiled. "Great, I'll bring my lawyer." Karren met me outside the HOA office the next morning, her lips pressed so tightly together it looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. She tried to pull me aside, but I stepped right in, holding the invoice in my hand like it was Exhibit A. The office was small: 1 room, 2 desks, and a stack of outdated newsletters no one read, but it was where they held their official meetings. Doug, the treasurer, with a comb-over and a slight twitch every time someone mentioned receipts, looked up as I entered. "Marcus," he said, voice cautious. "Let's keep this civil." "You'll get civility when I get an answer," I said, placing the invoice squarely in front of the 3 board members already seated. "You want to use my land, you pay for it, or we call it trespassing." "We didn't trespass," Karren snapped, standing behind me now. "It was for a community event." "Then the community can pay," I replied, "and if you think this is going away, you're dead wrong. I've already spoken with a property attorney who thinks this could qualify as civil encroachment." Doug sat back, rubbing his eyebrow like it had betrayed him. "We didn't budget for this." "Not my problem," I said. "You didn't budget to use my outlet either, but that didn't stop you from plugging in like it belonged to you." Karren stepped around me, trying to regain control. "Look, we can offer a goodwill gesture, maybe waive your HOA dues for the year." "But this," she tapped the invoice, "this is excessive. Waiving dues doesn't cover unauthorized use, possible property damage, or the fact that I had to clean up confetti out of my storm drain," I said. "You want to negotiate? Bring your lawyer." "I think we're getting off track," said Claire, the secretary with a voice like she taught kindergarten but eyes like she'd won a few knife fights. "What exactly are you hoping to accomplish with this?" I leaned forward, every word deliberate. "I want the board to acknowledge that my driveway is not, and never was, community property. I want written confirmation that this was unauthorized use, and I want compensation for it. Otherwise, I take this to small claims court." Doug muttered something under his breath, then reached for the HOA bylaws binder like it was a holy text. He flipped through it, paused, then frowned. "Karren, you referenced Section 9, right?" She nodded quickly. "Shared access points." "It's vague for a reason. It gives us flexibility. Shared access doesn't apply to private driveways," I said. "That section's for walkways and utility easements. You know it, I know it, so does the city zoning office." That shut them up for a moment. Claire cleared her throat. "All right. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that you're right. Can we agree to a resolution?" "I'll wait for your certified response by Friday," I said, turning toward the door. "Either pay the invoice or deny it in writing. But if you deny it, be prepared to explain that decision in court." They didn't stop me as I left, but I could feel Karren's glare like a hot iron on my back. That evening, I installed 2 more floodlights over the driveway and a motion sensor near the garage. If they thought they could sneak another community event in under the radar, they were in for a surprise. By Wednesday, I got a letter unsigned attempting to dismiss the invoice as an invalid claim, citing that community benefit supersedes individual inconvenience. I scanned it, printed it, and attached it to the complaint I filed with the county civil court the next morning. I didn't stop there. I also forwarded everything to the city planning and zoning department, along with footage of the event, the unauthorized electrical use, and screenshots from the bylaws. That same afternoon, I received a call from a zoning compliance officer named Tasha. "Mr. Langley," she said, "I reviewed your materials. You're absolutely correct. The driveway is entirely within your parcel boundaries. No shared easement, no municipal right-of-way. The HOA had no right to use it." "Appreciate the confirmation," I said. "Anything else I should know?" "Well," she said, lowering her voice slightly, "we've had a few complaints recently about that particular HOA misrepresenting property lines. If you're willing to go on record, we may open a broader investigation." "Put me on the list," I said. "Happy to help." 2 days later, I noticed something strange. My mailbox was hanging open, the latch bent. I always kept it shut. I checked the security footage, and sure enough, around 2 in the morning, someone in a hoodie had walked up, pried it open, rummaged, and walked off. I reported it immediately. A uniformed officer showed up that afternoon. Officer Ramirez, a tall woman with a calm voice and a body cam I was very happy to see blinking red. "Looks like you've got a bit of a pattern forming," she said after I showed her the footage. "You think this is related to your dispute?" "I don't believe in coincidences," I said. She nodded. "This counts as mail tampering. That's a federal offense. I'll file the report and notify the postal inspector. If you get any more harassment, call us directly." That night, I installed a locking mailbox. The next HOA meeting was supposed to be routine budget updates, landscaping contracts, the usual fluff. But word had spread fast about the invoice, and the community turnout was the highest I'd seen in years. People brought folding chairs. Some stood in the back. I sat in the front row, arms crossed, not saying a word. Doug tried to start things off smooth. "Welcome, everyone. Let's begin with old business," but someone from the back interrupted. "Are we going to talk about the lawsuit or what?" Heads turned. Whispers broke out. Karren stepped up to the podium, clearly rattled. "There is no lawsuit at this time, just a misunderstanding with one of our residents." "No misunderstanding," I said, standing. "I filed paperwork with the county court and zoning department. The HOA misused private property, attempted to redefine boundaries without legal authority, and retaliated afterward. That's not a misunderstanding. That's abuse of power. Claire tried to redirect. Let's keep the temperature down, but it was too late. Two more residents stood up Steve from across the street and Evelyn, who lived next to the greenbelt. This isn't the first time, Steve said. They told me I couldn't build a pergola because it violated sightlines, but couldn't show me where that was in the bylaws. They fined me for a non-conforming mailbox, Evelyn added. Turns out it was the exact same model the president had. Karren's composure cracked. We're doing our best to maintain the aesthetic and value of the neighborhood at the cost of bullying people and making up rules. Someone else shouted. The meeting spiraled. Residents called for an audit, a vote to freeze board actions until an independent review passed by majority voice. I didn't even have to say anything else, just watch the walls close in around Karren as the very people she tried to control turned on her. As I walked out, Doug caught up to me. You really stirred things up. I didn't stir anything, I said. I just turned on the lights. He looked down at the sidewalk, then back at me. You think they'll find something bigger? I don't think, I said. I know. By the following week, the neighborhood was humming with tension. You could feel it in the way people waved more cautiously, kept their conversations short, or glanced up the street before setting foot outside. The HOA hadn't issued a single notice or newsletter since the meeting, and the usual Tuesday landscaping crew skipped their rounds entirely. It was like the whole machine had stalled mid-gear. I wasn't about to let that quiet fool me. On Thursday morning, I received a certified letter. Not from the HOA, from the city's zoning office. It included a formal notice that they had opened an administrative inquiry into the HOA's conduct, specifically regarding misuse of private property and unauthorized events on non-common areas. Attached was a request for a full statement, along with any supporting documentation I hadn't already submitted. I spent the better part of the afternoon compiling everything. Not just the footage and invoices, but also screenshots from the HOA's website showing the event promotion. Copies of the bounce house permit filed under the community park, not my address, and a short written summary detailing every interaction I'd had with Karren and the board since the start of this nonsense. That night, I dropped the packet off at the zoning office in person, handed it to a city staffer named Janice, who gave me a long, knowing look as she leafed through the contents. We've had our eye on Laurel Ridge HOA for a while, she said. You just gave us a flashlight. The next day, Officer Ramirez returned, this time with another officer and two men in plain clothes. One of them introduced himself as a postal inspector. Apparently, the mailbox incident wasn't isolated. Another neighbor, Benny, the retired Navy cook who lived 3 houses down, had filed a similar report after finding his outgoing ballot mail torn open and resealed with cheap tape. When they cross-referenced our security footage, the same figure in a hoodie showed up at both mailboxes, same night, same time frame. Ramirez didn't mince words. There's a federal warrant out for whoever's responsible. We're treating this as coordinated mail interference. If it ties back to the HOA or anyone acting under their direction, it's not going to end with fines. I nodded slowly, the weight of it settling in. You think someone on the board's behind it? That's what we're going to find out, she said. We've already subpoenaed their internal communications. Emails, meeting notes, even group chats. Saturday rolled around again, and I noticed something strange. A white van parked across from my house, engine off but occupied. The same van appeared the next day. I jotted down the license plate and called it in. Ramirez confirmed it was unmarked city surveillance. We're monitoring for further tampering, she said, keeping her words short. Don't engage, just keep your cameras rolling. I didn't need to be told twice. By Monday, the real fallout began. Karren was noticeably absent from her usual morning walk. The one where she paraded her little terrier up and down the sidewalk, waving stiffly at everyone like she was royalty inspecting the peasants. Her house sat dark for 3 full days. No porch light, no movement. On Tuesday afternoon, a black sedan pulled into her driveway. 2 plainclothes officers stepped out and knocked. When no one answered, they circled around the back. 10 minutes later, they emerged with a laptop and a small stack of paper files in clear evidence bags. That evening, Doug showed up at my door. His face was pale, his shirt wrinkled like he hadn't slept. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He sat down at my kitchen table and laced his fingers together. "I didn't know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I really didn't know she was doing all that." "What exactly did she do?" I asked, not offering him a drink. "She forged a permit," he said. "Filed it under the HOA's name but listed your address as the event location to dodge the extra fees. Then she approved the expense herself without a board vote. That's why we didn't see it on the budget ledger. She moved the funds out of the landscaping reserve and labeled it as Community Enhancement Initiative." I leaned back in my chair, processing. "That's embezzlement," I said. He nodded once. "And the emails they pulled. She encouraged 2 volunteers to monitor dissenting properties for violations, told them to document anything that might create leverage." I stared at him deadpan. "You mean spy on people?" Doug didn't answer, he just stared at the table. "She also deleted the footage from the HOA's shared server," he added. "But what she didn't know is that our property management company keeps a separate backup. They're cooperating with the investigation." I let the silence hang for a moment before speaking. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because I'm resigning," he said. "And I think the rest of the board will too. Claire already did. I'm not going down with her. I stupidly thought she just wanted things to look nice. I didn't realize it was about control." I nodded once. "Then you should help fix it. Talk to the city, cooperate fully, and help the neighbors take the HOA back. No more clipboard dictatorships." He stood slowly. "Good luck, Marcus." "I don't need luck," I said. "I've got documentation." That weekend, the city called an emergency hearing, open to residents. They held it at the community center, and nearly every homeowner showed up, even those who usually avoided anything involving folding chairs and stale donuts. The city attorney, a gray-haired woman with a voice like sandpaper and zero tolerance for nonsense, outlined the findings so far. The HOA board president, Karren Northfield, is under investigation for fraudulent permit filing, misappropriation of funds, and conspiracy to interfere with federal mail service, she said without preamble. "We are also reviewing potential civil boundary violations stemming from misrepresented property use." The room erupted, people shouted questions. Some demanded full audits. Others asked if their own fines and citations would be overturned. The city attorney held up a hand. "Until this investigation concludes, all enforcement actions by the Laurel Ridge HOA are suspended. The board is hereby dissolved under emergency provision until a new election is held." Someone clapped, then another. Within seconds, the room was on its feet. I didn't clap, I just watched. Karren wasn't there. Her house had emptied out the day before. A neighbor said they saw her loading suitcases into the back of a rental car with out-of-state plates. Later that week, I received a check in the mail certified, signed, and with an attached letter from the property management company acknowledging the unauthorized use of my driveway and electrical outlet. Full payment, no conditions. The letter also included a formal apology and a note that they were cooperating fully with the audit. I framed the check, and the neighborhood, it changed. Not overnight, but it changed. People started talking more. Real conversations, not just polite nods. Benny organized a cookout not on my driveway this time, and folks showed up with actual smiles. The bounce house never came back, and I kept the cameras. I kept the documents. But I also kept my driveway mine legally and irrefutably. And if anyone ever tried to say otherwise again, well, I'd just send them another invoice. The new signs went up a week after the emergency hearing. Special Election Laurel Ridge HOA Board, with a city seal stamped at the bottom. No HOA branding, no clip art eagles or faux marble borders, just plain municipal notices. It was the first time in years that anything HOA related looked official instead of ornamental. I wasn't planning to run. I just wanted to be left alone. But after the way Karren had twisted the rules to serve herself, residents wanted someone they trusted on the ballot. Steve, the guy who got denied for building a pergola, stopped by and asked me to consider it. I'm no politician, I said, leaning on the fence post he was helping me replace. You're not a fraud either, he replied, handing me a level. That's already better than what we had. By the time the nomination period closed, I was one of 5 candidates. No speeches, no flyers, just names on a form and a box at the community center. The city was overseeing everything this time, no HOA involvement whatsoever. And when the results were posted, right there on the bulletin board next to the tennis court schedule, I had the most votes by a margin of 27. That same day, the city released a preliminary report on the investigation into the old board. 3 of the former members had already signed agreements to cooperate. Claire had turned over a private email thread that showed Karren had been quietly adjusting property boundaries on internal maps, ones never sent to homeowners. She'd labeled mine as a shared feature, and even created a fake easement overlay using outdated parcel data. It wasn't just my driveway. She'd reclassified a narrow strip of land behind Evelyn's house as common green space, and had planned to install a path through it, something Evelyn had refused for years. The city traced the edits to a third-party software program used by the HOA, one that required admin credentials only Karren had. But the worst part came later, buried in the appendix of the final report. Financial records showed a wire transfer of $72,000 from the HOA's reserve fund to a landscaping company that didn't exist. The listed address was a closed laundromat 2 towns over. The tax ID number traced back to a shell corporation registered in Karren's maiden name. That's when the feds stepped in on a Wednesday morning. 2 unmarked cars pulled into her sister's house in Pinebrook, where she'd been staying. Officers in plainclothes stepped out, calm and methodical, and walked her to the vehicle in handcuffs. The footage hit the local news by noon. No yelling, no drama, just Karren, stone-faced with her hair pulled back tightly, stepping into the backseat like she was still in control. She was charged with wire fraud, mail interference, and falsifying public records. The last one hit especially hard because she'd submitted a forged zoning map to the city's permit office during her driveway reclassification stunt. That meant jail time wasn't just possible, it was likely. The news spread like fire through the neighborhood. Some people were stunned. Others weren't surprised at all. Everyone agreed on one thing: no one wanted another Karren, so we changed things. The first board meeting under the new leadership wasn't held in the HOA office. We set up folding tables in the community park, no podiums or microphones, just neighbors sitting in a circle, talking. We amended the bylaws to cap the board's power: no more unilateral decisions, no more hidden expenditures. Any spending over $5,000 now required a neighborhood-wide vote. I pushed for one more rule. If a board member is found to have falsified any document, they're barred for life. No appeals. It passed unanimously. A few weeks later, I got an unexpected visit. The zoning officer who'd first confirmed my driveway boundaries, Tasha, showed up in a city vehicle. She stepped out with a clipboard and a rolled-up document under her arm. "We finished the audit," she said, handing me the printout. "That's the official parcel map, updated, validated, and filed. Your driveway is now explicitly marked as private use only, no more easement ambiguity." I unrolled the map and scanned the clean, bold lines. About time someone put it in ink. "We also flagged the HOA database for manipulation," she added, "the company that hosted their system. They've suspended all accounts pending review. Your HOA wasn't the only one with altered maps." That caught me off guard. "You think it's bigger?" She nodded once. "There's a pattern." Karren was just the first one arrogant enough to get caught. After she left, I sat on the porch and watched the street. Benny was across the way, trimming his hedges. Evelyn walked by with her dog, waving casually. The neighborhood felt different now, not just freer, but real. No more silent tension hovering behind hedges. No more eyes pretending not to watch. Later that week, the court date arrived. I wasn't required to attend, but I did. The courtroom was cold, bright, and impersonal. Karren stood in a navy suit a size too big, her hair no longer ironed into submission. Her lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, citing stress and community pressure. But the judge wasn't buying it. When the prosecutor read off the charges, each one was backed with documentation. Wire transfers, email logs, altered maps, witness testimony. They even played a clip from one of my security cameras, Karren walking across the driveway, clipboard in hand, pointing at where she wanted the bounce house set up. The judge didn't flinch. By the end of it, she was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, with 5 years probation and a ban from holding any administrative role in any registered HOA or nonprofit entity. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just nodded once before the bailiff led her away. Outside the courtroom, a reporter approached me. "Mr. Langley, do you feel vindicated?" I looked at the courthouse steps, the sky above, the open street behind her. "No," I said. "I feel like I got my driveway back." That night, I hosted a cookout, not a block party, just a few neighbors and a grill. Steve brought ribs. Evelyn made cornbread. No one brought a clipboard. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops and the porch lights flickered on one by one, I leaned back in my chair and listened. Kids laughing. Someone playing music softly from a porch speaker. No bounce house, no announcements, no speeches, just home. And that was enough.